so much is because of the number of things that they have to do from the federal level. Some of these things you need to start to let the states handle them and give it to them. So issues relating to security, aside from federal government coordinating that, you should let the states have a bit more towards fighting that. But one thing that beats me is what the Kano State representative on behalf of his governor said, the deputy governor. He says federal government should take 41%, states 34%, local government 24%, and we need an independent 10% for Kano State because it is a mini Nigeria. I don't understand. Is it because of their population or because of the size of the territory? I really don't understand. 1% because they're a mini Nigeria. So you know how many states are mini Nigerias in this country. So let's be focused on what we want and get what we want rather than and try just me, myself, and I again, and which is really the issue.
Thank you very much. I'm smiling reading the comments that have come through based on the emblem suggestion or marching orders. It's interesting to see, and I'm glad that we actually talked about this because a number of people are saying, I really want to show, let me say Dele's comment, which echoes a number of comments. I really want to show solidarity to the Nigerian military, but when I remember how they treat people like animals, I struggle. Chema says, what I always do whenever I see any military personnel, I stop and appreciate their service with a hug and encourage others to, which my driver also does. That's really good. Thanks, Chema. Fabian from Epe says, I'm sorry, but as a Nigerian, I need to know why I should be appreciative of the armed forces. In England, the US, etc., they have a history regarding their forces. Teach this in schools, and their Royal Navy, Air Force, and the like always rise up to expectations. You see the importance of this. We need a reorientation. So that's why we talk about there being such a disconnect from the center to the people, because we're feeling the pulse of the people. They say they don't see any reason why they should appreciate the army, but there's so many things.
There are so many things to appreciate the army, but the truth for me, and I continue to say it every time, and we have this discussion from time to time. We don't know the history of Nigeria over the last 61 years.
So true. So true.
So if you don't know and nobody's telling you, these are the kind of things. So a lot of young people who have been born into how Nigeria is today don't appreciate the fact that a lot of things have gone on. The army has, they've been to a certain extent, they've done a lot for Nigeria, but it's also been a part that has also led to this part of Nigeria. So we need to understand that history so that we can better appreciate those things.
We need information. We talk about having a strong Minister of Information, and I do think that it's beyond speaking on behalf of the government and trying to clean up or a PR machine.
Do we have a Minister of Information? We have a Minister of Propaganda.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that we can utilize that position well. Our people are not informed. One of the biggest challenges we have here in this country is misinformation. And trust is bred when you communicate properly with the person you're in a relationship with. However, if you're not communicating, you leave the floor open to a lot of propaganda, like you mentioned, a lot of things that are not true. You should read the comments that are coming through. I'll read this one and we'll move on. Asom Agos says, I would love to support the military, but how do I take my mind off from the several unnecessary killings that they have been accused of, including NSAS? These are the kind of things. We need proper communication. We need proper reorientation here in this country. But let's move on. We have a number of things to get through. But we'll talk about this during Lagos Talks, so that we have more time to really dig into this.
Yeah, I should stay back for Lagos.
And just listen to the people. But you have to be kind when you're calling, please. Federal government to end petrol subsidy June 2022. World Bank condemns 2.9 trillion naira funding. The World Bank has decried the continued spending by the Nigerian government on petrol subsidy, which it said is on track to gobble up 2.9 trillion naira this year. They said that this money could be better channeled to primary health care, basic education, rural roads. Like I said during Business Express, Mr. C, I don't think we needed the World Bank to tell us this, but let's get into this.
Okay, so sometime in 2020, I believe, this federal government did announce the end of the subsidy regime. Then the NNPC came up with this abstract term called under recovery, whatever it means. Long story short, they continued to subsidize the price of petrol, despite the fact that they wanted market forces solely to determine the price of petrol. Now, here we have the Petroleum Industry Act has been passed. It's now law. And they've been talking to the World Bank to get extra funding, and part of the requirements from the World Bank is that all forms of subsidies in the power and the oil and gas sector
Yeah.
must stop. Now, to this end, they've now said that they plan to end first quarter of 2022. That second quarter of 2022, they want a full deregulation.
Yeah.
Now,
How possible is this?
now you see, now I don't believe this government, and I'll explain why. There's already a trust deficit. We've already established that clearly. And then let's not forget, second half of 2022 is business season for the 23 elections. No government will want to fully deregulate the price of petrol heading into a crucial election it is determined to win by hook or crook. Now, we have spent 2.9 trillion funding the subsidy on petrol.
Yeah.
But guess what? How has that improved the lives of the average Nigerian? In Lagos,
They have petrol in petrol
no,
stations.
in Lagos, Port Harcourt, and maybe kind of the major cities, petrol goes from 162 to 165. Outside those states, you're buying petrol 200, 250.
Yeah.
In Sokoto or Zamfara, one of those states where there's a lockdown, 4 liters was going for about 3,000 naira. Yes. So the question is, who does this subsidy regime actually benefit? And then we've witnessed, and we continue to witness, declining revenue from the sale of crude oil, which results in reduced or dwindling allocations to the states and the local governments. Now, you've taken 2.9 trillion out to fund petrol subsidy, and this is what you have declared to us. It might be more. For how long are we going to continue doing this? At what point will we decide we need to bite the bullet?
Well, the Professor Join Salami, who is the chairman, Presidential Economic Advisory Council, said he had argued for a long time, and he, according to the provisions of PIA, like you mentioned, subsidy needs to go. So we're actually acting illegal, or the government is acting illegal by keeping subsidy ongoing. They have said they would phase it out, but I don't know about this June 2020.
The government, it might be legal, but the government can put up an executive order to hold those things in place.
So why pass it, or why sign it into law?
Because it has to be signed into law.
Okay.
The regulation in terms of the petroleum industry started in March 2020. But the truth of it is, you have not let market forces determine how these things will work out. Initially, it will be a huge shock to Nigerians, especially for those in the states that you mentioned. But we would all balance it out, because at the end of the day, truth be said, the level and state of economy, it could lead to so many other things. So that's why government is trying to balance this.
All right, thank you. Dipwell says, I hope you understand the subsidy issue has caused and encouraged a multiple of problems. Like I've always said, I absolutely support subsidy, but not in the manner it's being managed, as I'm of the proponent that subsidy should only be enjoyed by the good citizens only through electronic payments, where people that enjoy subsidy can only enjoy it when they make payments through electronic platforms. This would help leave digital footprints for collection of data for tax purposes and crime management, which is the biggest monster. Bamidele says Dangote refinery will come on stream by end of second quarter 2022, and this is what the federal government is hinging the removal of subsidy on. The removal reduces the pressure on the naira and will ensure the price differentials will not be much. PIA will take effect on next year, and it is PIA that Doyin Salami was referring to. All right, thank you. Let's move on to our next story. The Fashola calls for audit of all privatized government assets. We also touched on this during Business Express. The Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, has called for the audit of all government assets that had been concessioned or privatized. He said there were 7 assets that the private sector had not been unable to deal with. He said that, and then he mentioned that those needed to be privatized, or the assets that needed to be privatized or concessioned needed to be guided by clear and robust piece of legislation. This was actually said by the DG of the Bureau of Public Enterprises, Mr. Alex Oko. Now, he's cited like roads and a few other things that he believes the private sector just cannot handle. Do you agree with him? And do you think that some of these assets ought to be audited and to see how well they fared on the private management?
So my first question will be this: what does the regulation say? Now, some of these assets, the government do have stakes in them, and they are members of the board. So are they getting the reports back the way they should get them? That's one.
Okay.
Two, on the concession issues, there are standard terms and agreements that have been put in place. Who are people checking that these things are being done? So when the DG of BP, Bureau of Public Enterprises, says, "Oh yes, it's true," my question back to him is, "What's your agency doing?" Because you're the one in charge of all these things. Are you checking that these concessions are being met? The agreements and the terms that have been put in place. So you find out that sometimes some of these concessionaires would not even remit the amounts that are due. The ones that you can hold on to, and some of them they might look at them as trickles. So why am I going to audit them? So the truth of it is that it's about 243 assets have been privatized over a period. How many of those have met the terms and conditions for which they were privatized? And how many of them have been audited? There are a lot. And do I agree that there should be public-private sector partnership? Yes, I do. However, we must, like you said, there must be robust regulations that guide them. And aside from, which is the case with Nigeria, you have robust regulations, but there's no monitoring. And that really is.
So we have a challenge.
We have a
challenge in maintenance. It's just about like maintenance.
We have a terrible maintenance culture. So we'll rather let it break down and then we'll buy a new one. But forgetting that once you create a maintenance system, what it does is that you're continually providing on that value chain every year for those who provide those services. It might seem small, but the trickles, and then it doesn't come at a time whereby you're saying we don't have money and then we need 10 billion naira rather than having maintained and replace some of those parts with 500 million over the period and still have something new at the end of the day.
So from what he said, do you think roads in Nigeria should be concessioned?
Do I think? No, I don't. But does the truth of it is that does the federal government has over the last 20-30 years have that capacity to do those things? Because they have failed in providing those social amenities, and we've seen Nigeria's economy go in the direction of we don't have money in this country, and we're continually funding the budgets by borrowing. So how do you now fund those rehabilitations or building new roads? All over the world, there are private public-private partnerships, but the way it works, first of all, sometimes even the concessions, the way they are, you expect them to, you have a 5-year concession. So building a road, minimum is a 30-year concession. For running a port or an airport, minimum is a 30-year concession. But the government wants money, they want short-term concessions. So if it's going to take me 5, 6, 7 years to put an investment, for instance, in a port, and you're telling me that in 15 years, that concession ceases. How do I make my money? Because these are hundreds of millions of dollars that you're putting into all these things. So all these things have, so first of all, the structure has to be realigned and give longer concessions for things that require longer concessions.
All right, thank you very much. Sly says that in our analysis of the removal of petrol subsidy, you didn't recognize the fact that government has failed in refining petrol in the country. Then Noni says, I hear Wade, but is he referring to the history of the same military over the past 61 years? Does that include the diverse coups, murders, and lack of democracy for the first 50 years? And that's in Nigeria. All of the good ECOWAS work and they allowing us to have democracy since 1999 should be appreciated. I have nothing against supporting the military, she says. In fact, I find them to have more integrity than the police. But let's not whitewash the fact that they had a hand in shaping the Nigeria we have today.
Which is what we said.
Yes, it's only the past 20 or so years they have transformed into the type of military that we can even try to support. All right, let's go on to our next story here, Mr. T. Interesting one. Sit at home, Anambra adopts Saturday as school day. The Anambra state government has adopted Saturdays for normal school days following the weekly sit at home on Mondays declared by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. Is this an admittance of defeat? Is this an admittance of, because if IPOB decides that Saturdays they are not, is another sit at home day, would they make Sunday a school day?
Absolutely. So this is a very clear example of the loss of legitimacy by a state actor to a non-state actor. Now, IPOP declared Mondays as a sit-at-home day, and the Anambra state government has acknowledged that fact, but have hinged their decision on the safety of the teachers, the students, and the vendors who come to provide food to the students in school. So where you have a legitimate state actor or a supposedly legitimate state actor openly admitting that I cannot secure your lives while you go about your legitimate activities, is that not a big shame? Now, on the 6th of November, supposedly there is supposed to be an election. Now, if the people side with IPOP and say no elections, where does that leave INEC? And it's this similar situation that is beginning to play out in a number of Nigerian states, where you have non-state actors taking on the traditional positions of the supposedly legitimate state actors. In the Northeast, you find Boko Haram stepping into the shoes of the state actors and providing the things the state actors should ordinarily be doing. Now, imagine IPOP saying we can protect you better than the existing state governments. What then is the point of the state actors? And as more state actors cede their legitimacy to non-state actors, we're in for a very interesting ride in Nigeria.
Very true. I'd like you to touch on the next story very quickly before we go. Bandits killing 17, injuring scores in mosque, and abducting 18 in fresh Niger attacks. This report is in the Vanguard newspaper.
Okay, so very quickly, first things, our thoughts go out to the families of those who were lost. Now, another violent attack in Niger State, and preliminary reports from the state police commissioner suggest it was a reprisal attack due to an ongoing communal feud. But like all other attacks, are we just going to read about it and then keep it moving? Since you know it was an ongoing attack, what steps did you take to prevent a reoccurrence? Have you identified the leaders of these reprisal attacks? Has anyone been arrested? Has anyone been charged to court for these acts? And for as long as these acts continue to go unpunished, we will continue to read about them, and more innocent people will continue to lose their lives.
Thank you very much. Final comment, final headline story, just to mention that 13,800 passports uncollected at Lagos offices. Controller cries out, according to this Guardian report. Just to mention that if you applied for a passport, it's ready, go and pick it up and stop clogging our offices so that they can work efficiently.
They should send emails. They collected their email addresses. They have their numbers.
But they've sent texts. They've sent reminders. That's what the story says.
So please, if you've gotten texts and reminders, kindly go and collect your passports. Thank you so very much, Wade, and thank you, Mr. C. Thanks all our listeners and viewers on YouTube for participating in the conversation this morning. Don't forget, when we get into the Lagos Talks 981 hour, it's all yours. The floor is yours. We'll open the phone lines and a comment section. You can call in, send in your messages, and we'll just listen to your thoughts and analysis of the news stories this morning. Join me in 8 minutes. I'm Ayo Myra Essay. Stay tuned.
The headlines.
I'm staying for Lagos Talks.
The comments, I'm like, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm about to.
No, I'm not. The military are the cause of where we are today.
That's what people are saying.
But that's the truth, Ayo. They destroyed this country.
Let's hear from our listeners.